few of us looked at the whole pattern and we said, look, this is not going to be sustainable. This is not going to fulfill us. It's not going to be meaningful. So let's do something with this energy, creativity, enthusiasm that everybody has around it. And let's channel it. Let's flip it. Let's channel it for good. So what could we do? 4 of us went to a homeless shelter. We had no plans. We didn't want to change the world. We didn't want to, we didn't know how we were going to scale. We didn't even have a brand. We didn't have an organization, no 501c3. So we just want to go and want to help without any strings attached. We don't want anything. We don't want recognition. We don't want credit. We don't want you to, give us your guest pass to your, black tie dinner. Nothing. We just want to serve. So we go in and we end up building them a website because that's what we knew how to do. But that's what one of us knew how to do. The three other people didn't. But we all collaborated to make it happen. Interesting thing was, we were also moved by that experience. We came back and we told our friends, you got to do this, man. This is like, I know you're busy, I know you're working 80 hours, but put this 5 hours in. It's powerful. So other people joined. And this was it's hard to describe the culture. There were a couple of you from the .com culture, right? It was intense. My peers were talking about like millions and billions of dollars, and I was thinking, how many zeros again in a billion? It was a very weird thing. You're just coming out of college, and people signing bonuses are BMWs. It's just really weird. At least it was for me and for a lot of other people at the time. And so this became a very counterculture thing. So the media went crazy. They're like, what are you guys doing? You could make money doing the same thing, but you're doing it for free. And we said, yeah, we just want to give, man. What's wrong with giving? Like, you're crazy. So they wrote all over the place. And it was covered, first time I was on TV was on, I'm like an everyday guy. And the first time I get to be on TV is on CNN for a half an hour live interview with Q&A. I'm like, what am I going to do? But this was the whole spirit of it. Everyone's saying, oh, this is crazy, this is crazy. And to us, it didn't seem crazy. And so we kept doing it. But when the media hit, a lot of people saw that, and they said, you know what, I'm crazy like that too, sign me up. And so a whole bunch of people came. And we never really wanted to create an organization or a formal entity. And so when these people came, we weren't thinking about sustainability or what we're going to do 10 years from now. We just said, let's go out and do what makes sense. So at this point, we had a lot of volunteers, a lot of nonprofits. A lot of nonprofits came in to request services because we said we were going to do it for free. So the price was right, so everybody was coming in. And we said, okay, how can you hold all this energy? And that became our challenge. So we created a distributed infrastructure, and we really had nothing to lose. Right? We were just like out there trying to give without any strings attached. So we said, let's take the craziest risk that nobody else would take. And so we took some pretty ridiculous risks. I'll tell you more about it. But eventually it wasn't about building websites for nonprofits. That's how it started. Went into web solutions. Web solutions went into web portals, and it moved on to a whole lot of other things. But we had no staff. As a result, if I don't have staff, if I'm like, hey, can you help me out with this? They're like, sure, yeah, I can hook you up, no problem. So we got tons of help. There were lots of people saying, yeah, sure, a few hours, I don't mind, I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll do that. And we're like, okay, cool. What we realized was we had no staff. We had tons of help. We had no marketing. We didn't know how to pitch. To this day, I don't know how to pitch. But it was somehow it was a pull instead of a push. We've never pitched a story, and it's been covered all over the place. It used to be back in the days. Now we try to be even more renunciant. But that was interesting. We said, we don't really, we haven't thought this through, and yet there's all this attention. We were just being sincere. And the third thing was we had no plans. And yet we had tons of projects, right? Because it's like if you're trying to get a birthday party, you like her, and so you're like, let's have a birthday party for her. So you just do it. You make it happen. You're not sitting there, oh, what's the business plan? How's this going to scale? How can I kiss up to people who are really rich? You don't do that. You just make it happen. And so that's the kind of energy we had. No plans, but lots of projects. We said, if you don't like my project, go ahead, create your own. Whatever we got, it's all up, it's for everyone to use. And that created this incubator of enormous size. But underneath it, there were 3 values that we've never wavered from the day when we were unorganized to today, when there are more than, when I say 200,000 members, whatnot, numbers are numbers. But these 3 values are really crucial to us, to me. First is we were all going to be volunteer run. Because we wanted to create islands of possibility. So what happens if there are no strings attached? What happens if I'm giving purely for the sake of giving? Fine, I need to make my living, but I do that outside. What happens if we just give for the sake of giving? In this cocoon, we're just giving for that. What happens then? That was the question. Second one, no fundraising. We don't even pitch. Forget it. No asking. Just, if it's going to come, it's going to come. If it stops, it stops. Why are you so afraid? I mean, all things need to die. You and I are going to die. So if an organization isn't useful, if it's not serving a purpose, if it doesn't have enough fans, it should die. Let it die. So we said, okay, we'll do that. Again, this is sort of like this childlike energy that we had, you know, because we had nothing to lose. And the third thing was we were going to think small. There's lots of places where, and, you know, I gave this talk at, not this, but I talked about charity focus maybe in 2002 to a bunch of think tanker guys. Murray Gelman was there, it's the Santa Fe Institute, and like all these people. And here I'm saying, well, it's not really about the think tanks, you know? It's about being the change. And once you are being that change, your actions resonate with the message that you're talking about, and that action ripples out into you. No, Nipun, that's not how it works. You're young, you'll realize. But we have stuck to this. We really think small. Small in the sense of even subtle, if you want to call it. How small can you get? And that's a question. We learned, so because of these 3 things, we totally just stumbled into it. I mean, I can't honestly take credit for any of this. It's great to talk about it afterwards, but during it, I mean, there was no design per se, but there was sincerity. You know? And so because of that sincerity and because of the time that we're placed in, we had some interesting experiences. The first was, when you're volunteer run, what that does is we have no overhead. That means you birth what is the servant leadership. You have to be the change. People aren't going to listen. If you're volunteers, and you know, let's say we're a group of volunteers, and I'm like coordinating entity here, and if you don't like me, you're just not going to listen to me. If you don't like your boss, you put up with it, you whine, you take those problems home, but with volunteers, it doesn't work like that. You have to be the change that you're talking about. Right? Otherwise, nobody's there. The second thing we did was, instead of having one secretary answering the calls, for example, we distributed the workload. So one person would just pick up the phone, one person would take the messages, another person would assign them, another person would respond to them. So it was all very distributed. Instead of having one centralized role for one person, I always, instead of 5 people working 40 hours a week, we had 40 distributed people putting in 5 hours a week. Same amount of net output. It's harder to coordinate, but the internet offset those coordination costs. So that was interesting. And being volunteer run, not having overhead, allowed us to like radically invent. We had all this social capital, for lack of a better word, and we could just do anything we wanted. And we were like, is this real? Yeah, it is. It's like whatever we needed. Everybody was willing to chip in and make stuff happen. And it was happening. So it was very powerful. We stumbled across it. Second thing was no fundraising. And that is interesting. That's actually deep if you start to go into it. When you don't pitch, when we didn't pitch, trust goes up. When trust goes up, there's a lot of productivity. What it also forces you to do is have fans. Right? Because you can't ask. So who's going to ask? You still need things. So how are they going to come? Well, it's going to come through fans. It's going to come through people who really care about what you're doing. So that means you have to assume value everywhere. You can't say, oh, this guy's a millionaire, so let me be nice to him.